Crater Lake is easily one of the creepiest craters in the world. Formed by the eruption of Mount Mazama about 7,700 years ago, it's located in the appropriately named Crater Lake National Park in southwestern Oregon. Considered to be the deepest lake in the United States and the 7th deepest lake in the world, it turns out that this lake is not just a geological wonder, but also the subject of several strange occurrences. So today, we're going to be diving in and running down the top 10 freaky facts about Crater Lake on this episode of Super Freaky Science. If you want to stay updated on our latest videos, now would be a really good time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. In 1945, Crater Lake began to emit bluish-gray clouds of heavy dust. Resembling a thick smoke, these clouds had an odd mushroom cap shape. As a result, tourists soon began to personify the emission of the gas, describing them as the lake burping. Unsurprisingly, these events attracted a visit from some top scientists, and what they found out was that Crater Lake was not just a lake, but an active volcano. And although they predict it will likely erupt again in the near future, there's no need to panic because scientists believe that its next eruption will likely be very small and do no serious damage. According to the Klamath Native Americans, Crater Lake was created due to a flawed romance. The story goes that Mondokne, who was the chief of the underworld, was envious of the Klamath tribe's lands. As a result, he watched their people often, and in doing so, he discovered Loha, the daughter of a Klamath chief. However, when Mondokne sent his most trusted men to ask for Loha's hand in marriage, the Klamath people sent Loha away into hiding. When Mondokne heard about Loha's disappearance, he called for vengeance on the Klamath, causing a nearby volcano to erupt, leading to a war between the two chiefs. The fighting resulted in Mount Mazama collapsing and creating what is now known as Crater Lake. As a result, the lake is now a holy site for the Klamath people, and they still consider it to be a portal between the human and spirit world to this day. On July 4th, 1947, Crater Lake National Park was unfortunately the site of a very strange suicide. You see, a park visitor by the name of Mr. Cornelius and his wife were walking down a lake trail when, without warning, Mr. Cornelius slid down the edge of a mountain ridge in an attempt to kill himself. However, he only sustained a broken leg, but rather than stop there, he crawled to the edge of the lake and allowed himself to drown within it. And while this suicide seemed very strange to police investigators at the time, what prompted Mr. Cornelius to do such a thing is still a mystery to this day. As we'll see in this video, this isn't the only thing that proves that Crater Lake just has a weird energy to it. A park ranger by the name of Jan Kerwan is no stranger to odd occurrences near Crater Lake. Having worked at the park for decades, she has attested to the existence of strange phantom sights. If her reports are to be believed, she and other officers have seen campfires on Crater Lake's Wizard Island that seem to defy the laws of the natural world. That's because whenever her or another ranger approaches to shut down these illegally placed campfires, they seem to suddenly disappear upon the ranger's arrival, not even leaving a single scorch mark to attest to their presence. And one particularly odd occurrence, Ranger Kerwan claimed that she saw a group of 10 people sitting around a fire pit illegally, but when she approached them with her car, the entire site simply disappeared. And while no solid explanation has been put forth to explain these phenomena, some believe these sightings could be the spirits of the Klamath natives that used to hunt and berry pick in the area. Although not a literal old man, the Old Man is a title given to a 10.6 meter tall mountain hemlock that stands vertically in Crater Lake's waters. It's said that this hemlock has been floating in Crater Lake since 1896 and has reportedly traveled as far as 6.5 kilometers in a single day. Yet in 1988, a group of individuals boarding a submarine were worried about hitting the Old Man, so they did the unthinkable and decided to tie up the tree. Almost as soon as they had done so, the lake's waters turned extremely aggressive, threatening to capsize the submarine. So naturally, they decided to untie the Old Man, and once they did, the water went back to normal. Since then, scientists have tried to explain why the hemlock floats vertically and why this reported weather change occurred. But to this day, they are not entirely able to explain this phenomenon. Crater Lake has had its fair share of murders. However, one of the most frightening has been a cold case for more than 50 years. You see, on July 1st, 1962, an eyewitness remembers seeing two men who ended up being General Motors executives. They were talking to two other men described as quote-unquote blue-collared men. These two other men led the GM executives into the woods, and what happened next is perhaps a mystery, but certainly a tragedy. The two businessmen were discovered to be murdered execution style, in addition to having been gagged by their own neckties, and one even had his pair of shoes missing. And while this case has not been solved to this day, one thing is for certain: those blue-collared men are some serious sketchballs. Unfortunately, it's been quite common for travelers to find the bones of individuals who have perished within Crater Lake. However, what's odd is that these remains tend to appear years after they've passed, and far after the search for the bodies were called off. This has led conspiracy theorists to question whether or not it's a coincidence that remains seem to consistently reappear years after being lost in the vastness of Crater Lake. This strange occurrence and many others, as we'll soon see in this video, are what give Crater Lake its spooky and mysterious reputation. Speaking of spooky and mysterious, on February 4th, 1997, the park received numerous reports of military jets trailing three strange UFOs with blinking lights over Crater Lake. Coincidentally, it was on the same evening that various car alarms simultaneously went off across western Oregon as a whole, supposedly in response to a sonic boom occurring in the area. The sequence of events has led many to believe that the sonic boom, which is an interference created by an object moving faster than the speed of sound, was created by UFOs. And as with most UFO theories, there's still hard evidence missing to confirm what actually went down in the skies above Crater Lake that fateful night. In 1980, a family camping trip near Crater Lake was going as planned when at about 9 p.m., one of the children heard a strange sound. Describing it as the result of the banging of pots and pans, the sound appeared to be getting closer, until eventually, a large figure approached the campsite's fire. Although the child had an unclear view through his tent's flap, he saw the figure's body from the chest down and claimed that despite being similar to that of a human's, it was acting very strangely. In fact, this figure supposedly shook the tent and stared at the child for hours, leading the child to believe that the figure was some sort of beast. However, after looking for footprints the next day, the child could not find any due to the pine needles littering the area. And while this account has unsurprisingly been questioned by most, many believe that this could have been the sighting of the legendary Bigfoot. And given that many similar sightings have been made near Crater Lake in the years since, perhaps these conspiracy theorists really are onto something. In 1975, a 19-year-old photographer by the name of Charles McCuller went on a trip to Crater Lake to take some scenic pictures of this natural wonder. Reaching the park in January, Charles planned to stay near the lake for just 2 days before moving on to a friend's house in state. Even though he informed his friend he would be there within 2 days, he never showed up. As a result, the FBI was contacted and began searching for him on a trailhead that he had last been seen on. After months of investigative work, he could not be found and was presumed to have passed. Fast forward to about a year later, and two hikers traversing the trail find a torn-up backpack that seemed to have belonged to McCuller. Unsurprisingly, this led to the park rangers once again initiating a search, and after some time they finally found his body, and it was located about 19 kilometers from the trailhead, and authorities were completely puzzled by this. After all, the snow was more than 2 meters deep at the time of McCuller's disappearance, and it would have been impossible for him to have walked such a far distance through that deep of snow. He was also found without any of his expensive camera equipment or his money, suggesting that these things may have been stolen. To top this all off, there was something very off about McCuller's remains. All that was found of his body were his feet bones in his socks and his shin bones in his unbuttoned jeans. McCuller's disappearance was ruled to be of natural causes, since park rangers believe that he simply took off his clothes after suffering from and eventually succumbing to hypothermia. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that neither his family nor most of the general population agree with the park rangers' verdict. And on a less murderous note, thanks for watching Super Freaky Science, and don't forget to subscribe.